days. I hope the demands for change are really there, and they push because what they're saying is right, and these are the changes that need to be made in this country.
So do you think that this is going to happen on college campuses? There was a student walkout on Wednesday. It was very small, very limited.
Well, I think that this is spreading in a lot of ways, very creative ways, so we don't know exactly the way it's going, but the fact that it's going to a lot of cities right now, a lot of reporting, this is how change gets started. I find it very, very exciting.
A lot of people compare it to the Arab Spring. You see any similarities?
I think that all over the world right now, young people are saying, we got to make our societies fair. We have to get alert again to what's happening. So the Arab Spring is one place. I was in Chile last month. The students are out protesting in Chile. In Israel, in Tel Aviv, you had 500,000 people out on the streets about social justice. So this is something that's spreading around the world also, because for so long, globalization was creating deep changes, but governments were not tending to those changes. And people at the top were getting very, very rich, but a lot of people weren't even getting a foothold in the new world economy. And what they're saying right now is we need a foothold and we need a more inclusive economy. And I think that that's what's being heard in many parts of the world.
The American middle class is suffering tremendously. Why did they start fighting back?
It's a weird thing. When I wrote the book, The Price of Civilization, I read dozens of opinion surveys in this country. And I discovered something that I didn't really appreciate. And that is that the American public has wanted a different policy for years and years. But the politicians are absolutely deaf to what the American people are saying. The American people have said by large majorities, tax the rich, end the wars, protect the social safety net. And the opposite is happening. So the breakdown is not with the public. The breakdown is between the public and Washington. Now, why is that? Well, why do we have a president, for example, and someone I voted for and supported, and I support as president, that is spending his time to build a $1 billion campaign chest for re-election? What normal place in the world, what democracy do you know of where you would go out to build $1 billion for your re-election? It's impossible. Our democracy is being broken by money this way. And that's why the politicians don't hear the people anymore. If you don't have big bucks, you can't meet the politicians. That's the basic point. And that's why as soon as President Obama came into office, Wall Street came in right with him. Everybody was shocked. But he had a banker's administration at the beginning. Now he's a bit waking up, realizing that he gave up his base from the first moment. What happened? Everybody felt, that's not what I elected. We elected change, but we got Wall Street back. And that's a serious puzzle until you look at the way that the lobbying and the campaign financing works in this country. What you need is awareness. You need a social movement. You need people saying no more. You need candidates that stand up and say, I'm not taking money. My opponent's taking money. He's being bought. I'm not being bought, because this is going to be the successful way to campaign in this country, is by not taking the big bucks. They're wrong. They think that you have to take $1 billion to get reelected, but somebody's going to stand up and say, he's dining with the millionaires every night. He's on the take of all of these big corporate lobbies. I'm an honest guy. I'm not taking any of that. And then the free media and the social networks and Twitter and everything else, that's the person that's going to get the huge public support in this country, because they're going to stand up and say, hurrah, someone gets it. They're breaking this corporatocracy. They're returning to a democracy.
The so-called media, or free media in the U.S. took a very long time to pick up.
It's only starting. Give it some time. That's why I think that what's happening here is very, very important. And the fact that it's spreading to other places is very, very important. But this is a big, diverse, noisy country. There's a lot of powerful, big media conglomerates that don't want to talk about this. They don't like this. They're worried about it. There's a lot of big money. But I'll tell you something interesting. You know, one of the most important print mouthpiece of the corporatocracy autocracy is Rupert Murdoch. No question about it. And the Wall Street Journal. So the Wall Street Journal even took notice. Of course, the way they took notice was they ran an editorial that said, we don't take notice, we're not paying any attention, we're not going to write about this, and they proceeded to give a nice big editorial denying the obvious, which is that they're paying attention and they're worried, and they ought to be worried, because people are finding out what's really going on in this country.
Professor Sachs? There's a lot of money that's going to resist this, exactly as you're saying. Should that be frightening?
Should it be frightening? Of course, this is really about the future of this country. And the money is very powerful, and the Koch brothers and Rupert Murdoch and other billionaires put in a lot of money for a lot of corporate propaganda. A lot of the big companies put in money for a lot of corporate propaganda. Why is it that in the United States we've done nothing on climate change for 20 years? Because of the power of big oil and big money to pollute the air, not just with carbon dioxide, but with corporate propaganda. So of course we have to be worried. This isn't just a game. This is the future of this country. It's actually the future of the world. And if it's decided by the Koch brothers and by ExxonMobil and others, we're really in a hell of a lot of trouble.
Are you saying that corporations should not be in private hands?
No, what I'm saying is that corporations should do business. They should stop trying to run our country.
Yes.
They should get out of the lobbying. They should not be in campaign financing.
How is that possible if they're in private hands? If they're not nationalized, why do
Because
they do what we would want them to do for the good of the people?
Because thank God there are countries that show that you can have companies and you can still have democracy and you can still have representation. Countries like Sweden, countries like Denmark, where you don't have government owned by the corporations. You don't have these lobbies. You don't raise $1 billion to run a re-election campaign. Those are normal countries. And we have to go back to the idea of being normal in this way, not being bought by these powerful interests.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, remember Chile?
Yeah.
Remember the silver mines? Did you saw the populists come up and say, hey, we can't take it any longer. It costs too much money to live. Do you see seeds of that here? Is that what you're talking about?
What's happening here, what I love in this is that when the buses roll by, people are cheering from the decks. These are out-of-towners.
They come from the world.
They're out-of-towners, and they're watching, and they're saying, right on, you're saying what I feel. And that's very, very important. What is happening here represents the mainstream views in this country. That's what's so important to understand. We have two right-of-center political parties. That's pretty weird. No one fights for the center in this country. They fight for the campaign contributions. And the mainstream is here. And that's the point. That's the 99% here. But the two parties are fighting for the 1%.
That's right.
That's right. That's what's happening.
And what can you say about all the money spent on the wars? How could that have been spent differently?
We've spent trillions of dollars on these absurd wars. First one, useless and lies from the start to the end. And we're not at the end right now. And so this is one of the absolutely shocking parts of this country. The Iraq War was sold like corporate propaganda, like advertising, like the way you roll out a new product. It was sold with a pack of lies by a disgusting administration. And we now have spent trillions of dollars. We've killed hundreds of thousands of people there. We've suffered thousands and thousands of lives lost here, and tens of thousands of our young people crippled by these wars. And what will it have been for? It will have been for nothing. Because that's the point. Whoever is filming, put it on television. I do say it. I do say it that way. But I'll try to be clear. I promise.
Okay, Ben, here, it's the 10th anniversary.
The start of something big.
It is. I agree with you. I agree with you. I couldn't agree more with you.
So then what would you say to everyone about the 10th anniversary?
People continue to vote for Republicans. How do we make common cause for what's baffling to me is that John McCain gets 50 million votes in 2008.
I'll tell you something interesting. Yesterday I was giving a talk about the top 1% and the bottom 99%, and somebody started to complain about the taxes that they're paying. And I said, I'm talking about taxing those guys. He says, oh, no, you're, I'm against that. And I said, why are you doing the bidding of the billionaires? If you're a billionaire, let's talk. But if you're who I think you are, if you're, a typical American, you're just doing the bidding of the rich. You're not helping yourself. And this is what we have to do. We have to talk. We have to explain. This is what democracy is all about. And we have to explain what the real facts are in this country. The facts are so stark that as they become known, people are saying, oh yeah, I get that. And right now, Americans are disgusted with their government. They don't believe in Congress. They're not believing in Washington. They say by a majority that Washington is a special interest group, if you can imagine it. How it's right, but weird. What a concept that a government is a special interest group. But that's what happens when the corporate lobbies take over the politics. And so, but the solution's here. The solution is public understanding. The solution is explaining the difference of the 99% and the 1%. The solution is to explain practically what can be done. When they tell you that we have a big budget deficit, the only thing to do is cut. That's garbage. That's nonsense. That's worse than baby economics. You learn the first day of economics. If you have a deficit, you can either raise taxes or you can lower spending. And if the rich aren't paying their taxes, that's a great place to start. So it's a matter of public understanding. We just don't have that from the political parties right now because they're listening to the 1% because that's who's paying their campaigns.
How do you get the private companies, the private sector out of public elections? How do you get the public sector?
What we need right now is a massive social understanding. It's starting here. It's spreading around the country. We need politicians that are going to come forward and say something very simple. I'm not taking any donations beyond $100. I'm not going to have any PACs, any super PACs, any 527s, any whatever it is. I'm not having any anonymous corporate giving, nothing. I am going to be going to run for office as a person not bought by the corporate sector. And that is going to win the election. Because you're all going to tweet them and retweet them and retweet them and retweet them. And they're going to be your friends on Facebook, and they're going to be millions of people supporting this. And you're a lot more clever than those guys. They don't even know how to use the internet. So go for it. Use the social marketing tools. Break the back of money in the campaigns. That's the trick. Get candidates who will make the pledge. No corporate donations, no big donations, no bundlers, no PACs, no super PACs, just we're standing because we're with Americans. Elect those people, then we're going to have our democracy back. It can be done. Those people will win. President Obama seemed like he was doing it. He actually showed you could raise hundreds of millions of dollars. But, he bought a little insurance on the side. Okay, mass movement, but I'll still have some Wall Street bundlers on the side. And then as soon as he came in, what did we get? We got Robert Rubin, we got Larry Summers, we got Tim Geithner, we got Wall Street back again. That won't work in this country. But if he had gone through the way he promised to go through, he could have won still. And he wouldn't have come in with Wall Street having paved the way. And he could be his own person. And that's the kind of politicians that we need and the kind of campaigns that we need. And that's going to be possible precisely because it's a new era, a time when social media can be absolutely as effective as big paid media. I mean, who watches TV anymore anyway among young people? Nobody. So go for the free stuff. Go for the real social networking and information. Go elect candidates that aren't bought, and then we'll see the country change.
Republican Buddy Roemer said yesterday that he's not taking any campaign donations.
Who said that?
Buddy Roemer.
Okay, well,
He's running for the Republicans now.
look, a candidate that isn't bought is a candidate we ought to take a close look at. That's the first starting point.
Republican or Democrat.
Because what's happening right now is that the big lobbies, and what are they? It starts with big oil, and it starts with Wall Street, And it goes to the health insurance industry, which broke the back of health reform by making it basically entrenched the corporate profit model, which is twice as expensive as any other place in the world, and the military-industrial complex, and then you understand the mess of this country. They're running the government, they pay the money, and that's what has to be broken.
Dr. Sachs, so given what we've seen in the Obama administration, do you think that some kind of change systemically like that would require a third-party movement?
I think that we ought to try a number of different things. Maybe this America elect will be real, who knows? But they claim that there's going to be a place on the ballot for somebody that didn't go through all of this crazy campaign fundraising, and that there could be a third candidate by next year. That's one possibility. Second is we got to go not just to the White House, but around Congress. And we have to get progressive people who want change, who will go for the campaigns without the campaign contributions, and we'll have the new model of campaigning. $100, yes, somebody has to get enough to put the gasoline in their tank and to be able to drive around their district. But you don't need more than that to win an election these days. You don't. This whole idea that you need big bucks is phony.
So how do we go about putting pressure on the Republicans and the Democrats to enact that kind of change?
Go get candidates. Go get people, even this election round, that says, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to compete on this basis. We're going for the free media. We're going for the systemic change. Just say, we're not going for everybody's vote. I only want 99% of the votes. I want the 99% of the real people, not the 1% at the top. And you'll win a lot of elections that way. And someday soon, the White House is going to be run that way.
Well, most of these campaigns, they need the money is for all the marketing, for all the ads on.
That's exactly right.
Right? Because that's what costs money.
That's exactly right. They think that you have to do slick advertising. They think you have to do swift voting. They think you have to do expensive paid TV. But my theory is that's no longer true. That there's another way to campaign. That a viral will.I.am YouTube is as powerful as any $1 million campaign contribution. And you get out there and you do it for free, you do it in the social networking, and you're going to get far more impact. And that's the way to change the politics right now.
Dr. Sachs, what do you think of creating a platform where you can crowdsource legislation through representatives? So representatives would run, congressmen would run, and they would pledge to vote in direct accordance with how the constituents are voting online. So now it would be the 99% that are casting the votes in Congress as opposed to the 1%.
What I think we need right now actually is to think clearly. What are the problems in this country? How are we going to get the kids in school? How are we
What do you think of that system, though, that would actually shift power directly to the people?
I think
we're trying to build it. It's called Come Together.
I think what's really true is that if you look at what people believe, they're going to go for a good agenda. They're going to go for a progressive agenda. The majority of people in this country want a completely different kind of politics. They want to tax the rich. They want to end the wars. They want to break the power of these corporate lobbies. They want social safety net. They want education for their kids. And so the question is, how can we mobilize candidates to do it? And I think what you're saying is very interesting, to find new ways to reconnect public opinion with votes. But I also really do want politicians that stand up and say also what they believe in, not bought, because they'll attract a lot of attention. And I think we need a public awareness and public discussion and deliberation campaign, not simply pressing the button of what you believe, but a lot of public deliberation that a campaign leader can say, here's what I believe, here's why I believe it, here's what this country needs, because that's also a very important part of political change. But I like your way also. I like your way also.
Next year, this change of a candidate standing up and pushing himself away from corporate funds. Can that happen in the next 12 months?
I think it could certainly happen in state and local elections. It could certainly happen in congressional elections. whether it would happen in the White House, I'd like nothing more than to see President Obama say, you know, I made a mistake. I'm canceling all my $35,800 dinners, all that stuff about raising $1 billion, wrong idea. Sorry, Mr. Plouffe, we're running a different kind of campaign. I'm the president. I got a lot of free media. You know, I don't really need that anymore. I'm not going for that kind of campaign. If President Obama said that, we'd have someone that we could trust again, because we know that he's going to be there, not bought, and not listening. He listens to every week when he goes to the fancy homes and he goes to the Four Seasons and he goes to Wall Street for these expensive dinners. So one thing I would strongly recommend to the president is get smart right now. You want to win re-election, stop these fundraising dinners, stop the $1 billion, just lead the country. The people will trust you if you show that you're shaking yourself free of these corporate lobbies.
Dr. Sachs, President Obama had the opportunity to do so during his first campaign. If you recall, he first stated he would not opt out. He did. He opted out and he took the money. At present rate, I believe his last filings, he's already raised $300 million.
I agree with you.
What are you going to do? You're going to tell him he's going to send back all the money? That's not feasible.
Yeah, but I'll tell you quite seriously. I hear you.
More importantly, we have banks today. Right? Everybody here gave banks money. Everybody who's a taxpayer gave banks money. Today they're using that same money to foreclose on people, to take their homes. Right? Where, if you read the TARP program and the one sheet that was signed by banks,
No problem.
what did they say? It's called asset relief. The question is real simple. When are we going to get our money? When are we going to get our money back?
That's the whole question here. When the administration came in, you have it exactly right. They hired the team that made the mess. And they're still having dinner at the White House. And this is still viewed as normal. So we're not going to do it until we change the politics. You know, I don't think, by the way, that our tactical discussion, I just have to say that it's going to make much difference, because my guess is that Obama's going to go on to try to raise $1 billion. But if he stopped today, I'd still feel better, frankly, than what he's doing right now. I'm going to turn. Thanks a lot. No, sorry.
10 years ago, you were part of something with tiny little Francis Fukuyama. Why not bring that back? It's a superhero group of people. Awesome. Lovely
That's what the essence of our democracy.
It's starting to show up.
So,